Hello, my name's Braxton Reuter, and I do these videos every other day because I've been on something called a truth journey for the last, we'll call it 5 years. We'll call it a truth journey. And basically, it is exactly what it implies. It's me seeking truth. And everybody's like, oh, like, what is truth? And that's exactly what Pontius Pilate asked Jesus while they were having their final discussions before his crucifixion. And so, yeah, what is truth? The thing that's true. You asked me, Braxton, what is truth? The thing that's true, that's going to hold time and time again, the thing that is true. It works. Me saying that works because there's things that are untrue and there's things that are true, and I'm looking for the things that are true. Whatever that means, to anybody. That's what it is. It's the truth. The truth, the word truth is supposed to describe everything, those things that make up the word that we associated, those things, we associated a word to them. Yeah, those things. I'm looking for those things. And I found Jesus Christ about 4 years ago, maybe. Yeah, I always knew Jesus and who he was, grew up in church and that whole thing, but I didn't really know him for myself until recently, like the last 4 years, and it's flown by, but my point is that, that's what we're doing here on this video. We're doing that right now. We're actively doing it, and I've made it my goal since I found the truth that is never changing. It works on all levels, and I've never heard a better story. So I'm, kind of guy who's open to hearing anything you have to say. Namely, because the people in that Bible that I read about all the time that were rejecting Jesus and what he had to say, didn't listen to what he had to say and didn't really have any biblical reasons to do what they did to him, because that's where I would go back to, is the Bible. Anybody speaks anything to me, I'm comparing it to what God's word says. And that's an important reason for you to read your Bible, but we'll have the rest of the video to talk about that. But I just want to let you know what I'm doing here today, why I'm here, and why I do what I do. Right now we've been going through the book of Matthew for it's got to be at least 4 or 5 months, if not longer now. It's hard to keep track. And we're in Matthew chapter 24 today. And this is an interesting chapter because Jesus is speaking to the disciples about the end times. The disciples ask Jesus when what signs will come to show that the end is near. When will it be? All these questions. And Jesus basically gives them like 5 paragraphs of like what the end times are going to be like and what to look out for and what's going on. And we're going to read over that. But I'm really going to summarize because it's a very rich text if what you're after is looking for signs of times to come. And I don't think anything in the Bible is irrelevant. I just think that us talking about the fruits that you're working towards righteousness produces love, joy, peace, patience, kindness. I think that has more applications today than us talking about the abomination, the desolation of abomination, and all these other biblical terms that, if you are a Christian, I would say that the number one thing that stuck out to me was, and this is just like on good faith, I'm saying this, like I said, I'm not against anything, I'm for the whole Bible. I'm saying that Jesus says that there's going to be many like him that come after him. They're going to be false prophets. They're going to say, look, here he is in this inner room. And Jesus is like, don't get excited about that stuff because it's not true. And then he goes on to tell you what is true, what's going to happen. And these are his words, and I have to take him and believe them for what they're worth, which is from the mouth of Jesus everything at this point. I kind of put all my eggs into Jesus's basket. And you think it's a scary thing, and you think it's a hard thing to do, but once you actually start doing it, and once you need it and you want it, then it kind of changes for you. Once you get to a place like I was specifically, I can go off my own testimony because I don't know what exactly happened to you. I probably never will. But I can tell you what happened to me. And I can say that I was at a place where I needed God. Like, there was nobody else around. My mom, who I'm very close with, I'm a mama's boy. I love my dad, and we have a different kind of relationship than me and my mom. Like, I love my dad in a different way than my mom, but I'm still a mama's boy, if that makes sense. I would always take up for my dad, my parents are divorced now, and that's kind of where all the sticky stuff comes in. I'll spare you those details, and I'll just tell you that I am a mama's boy, and I was with my mom, while these really just unexpected things were happening to me, and I didn't choose to be in the situation that I was put in, but nonetheless, there you end up. And so I needed somebody to be there with me. And even my mom, like, in her presence, it wasn't enough. Like, being around even the most special and important person in your life wasn't enough to to make me feel whole, because I was empty. And dude, I was dragged through the mud. I mean, maybe one day I'll tell you exactly what happened, but I don't even really know what exactly happened yet. When I figure it out, I'll tell you, but I'm still 6 years later, 4 years later, still figuring this out, what exactly happened, because it's just wild. But I was so low during the times that I'm speaking about, that I needed somebody to be with me 24, I needed somebody to be there for me, and nobody was strong enough to take the burden that I had on my shoulders, that I had put there without meaning to. And it was, it was innocent. I didn't sin or do anything wrong like that. I just took on a heavy load without knowing exactly what I was doing. And it's one of those things where once you're locked in, you ain't coming back out. And so it's like you don't have any other options. You don't have that peace of mind that you had maybe a month or a week ago. When that text comes in, when that phone call comes in, there's no helping. It's set in motion and it's happening. And so my only solution was to call on God, and I prayed to Him that day. And I was on the back of a jet ski with my mom, and I was hadn't eaten in a few days. I couldn't eat. I was depressed. And that's why she took me on this vacation, and we ended up on a jet ski. I'm on the back of the jet ski. I was just like, God, as close as I can possibly get to you, that's where I want to be. And I wanted Him to do it right then. And He did. And I felt His presence, and everything was awesome. And I made that statement to God, and I know He heard me, and I was really seeking comfort at that point. And the crazy thing is, I'm willing to acknowledge that. I don't know if I was mature enough or able to speak that, before this time, but I was really seeking for comfort in a time where I had none. Everything that I was using for comfort got ripped away. And God was there. He was the only person there. Like, the thing that I needed, my mom couldn't give to me in that time. My dad couldn't give to me. Nobody could have given me what I needed at that time. It was so unexplainable. I needed that deep comfort that doesn't come from anywhere else. The only person it could come from is God, and that was my reasoning. So I called on Him, and I was like, look, I don't know how close it is for a human being to be to you, but I need to be there. And sure enough, a few months later, this didn't happen. I didn't change my life that day or anything, but after a few months' time, I started reading my Bible a little bit more, and then I started to get interested. And then I started to, have all these thoughts and passions towards God that I couldn't hold it in anymore. I just had to start speaking. And that's what I'm doing today from 3 years ago maybe, was from that day on the jet ski until now, was like basically standing up in front of my camera and speaking to all my friends that I've met over the years, at least on Instagram. I mean, I got stuff going on here that would blow my mind. If I told myself that this was happening 4 years ago, I wouldn't believe it. I'd be like, dude, that's not cool, and it's a little, I wouldn't do that. No way. And it happens. Now I'm stronger than I've ever been, and I know what it was like before I had Jesus, and I know what it was like after. And now that I've been walking with him, and every single day and month and year I'm constantly shaping myself to be more like him, I can tell I'm way happier, way better off with Jesus. Like, you don't beat having a connection with God. Do you know who God is and how big the word God is supposed to help you know what I'm talking about, and the vastness and the huge and greatness of it all. And we just throw around words today without really understanding or think about what they're talking about, and we just kind of throw them around. And so I want you to think about a little bit deeper, why we're even speaking in the first place, and the implications that these words actually, the reality that these words hold inside of them. And when I say God, I mean the guy who made the universe. I mean the guy who somehow put consciousness in this meat suit that I'm wearing right here and made all this stuff work together. The oxygen, he put everything together. And apparently he spoke words to make this happen. And this was no task for him. He just did it because he's like that big. And our universe is constantly expanding. It's huge. And it's like, I don't understand, and this is for the people who don't believe, know why. Why do I believe? That's what I can say with certainty. Why do I believe? Is because I don't understand how this place would work without it. It doesn't work. I don't understand, and that gives me understanding. That story makes sense. Oh, there's a God who made it, and he made you with the purpose, and he wants your purpose is to be more like him every day. So now we know how we got here and what we're supposed to be doing here. See, now the story's starting to click to me. Things that I never would have figured out by using my eyes and my ears. Because, see, nobody tells you about God or Jesus, about how you have a purpose, and you're not here for no reason. You're not here to make the big bucks. That's not your purpose here. It might be a part of how God uses you in your story with God, but that's not what you're here for. Your purpose is to serve him and to be more like him. And the reason I say serve him, and you're like, ooh, that sounds horrible, is because that's what he does to everybody else. If you want to be like him, you serve everybody else. And basically, that's what you do every single day. And the more you become like God, the more you work towards being righteous, is what the Bible says. The Bible uses the terminology righteousness, and that is the righteousness of God, his goodness, his perfection. You are constantly shaping yourself every single day to fit the character and the image of God that is presented to you in that Bible. And it's not a task like if you don't do it, you're going to burn in hell. It's like, no, I need this so I'm not depressed every day. So I'm not anxious every day. So I'm not spinning around in circles trying to figure out what to do because I'm not smart enough to figure some situation that I'm in and out. I have God for that. So I don't have to deal with any of that stuff now that I know my purpose and the whole story behind my existence. And so you understand now that helps tremendously when you're processing your decisions throughout the day, the thoughts that you think. When you sit down, you slow down and you start shaping them towards something that you know isn't evil, that you know isn't wrong, you know isn't bad. It's actually clean, pure, and blameless. And so it's like, how could nobody would say anything against this because it's good. And everybody likes when things are good. We don't always like the way that the good makes us feel. Doing bad things feels good sometimes. And that's why we'd rather do it than do the right thing. That's why Paul says, don't grow weary, but finish as though you're running a race to win. Run to win. You are in a race right now, and you and the one who endures till the end will get the crown. Those are Jesus' words. And I'll read you what the text says about Jesus telling the disciples about the end times, because they're asking, and we're just in that point in our story, right before he's about to be crucified. I mean, there's some very deep-rooted historic, like Jewish history happening here, with a lot of deep, stuff from their time happening. It's very deep cut that we're reading right now, but I'll read it to you nonetheless. I just want you to understand that there's a reason why I stand up here and speak to you the way that I do. Nobody pays me to do this. Nobody encouraged me to do this. Actually, when I started talking, everybody was asking what was wrong. And I was like, dude, y'all are about a year and a half too late for that crap, because I'm done feeling bad again. And this is how I'm feeling better. And I never said that to anybody, but that's how I felt like. And nobody was telling me to keep going. And so I have no other reason today except for what Jesus has done for me to be explaining this to you guys right now. I wouldn't. I'd be in bed asleep. And I thank God every single day that I'm not, because that sounds like a waste of time. Not getting anything done. Because I'm proud of all the things that I'm doing now for Jesus. And it gives me something to hold my head up about. And if I couldn't do this anymore, I guess I would have to go to the streets. I mean, there's always a way to glorify God, and that's why it's incredible, because of how vast and how big He is. And we could talk about that all day long. And trust me, I plan on doing it, because I've been making these videos for about 3 or 4 years now, every other day. I probably got about 600 and some handfuls of videos made right now on Instagram. And I plan on talking about this forever. So we got plenty of time, is my point. But I will say again and again and again, like, dude, I'm not here to sell you anything. I'm here to tell you about what happened to me and how it can help you. And His name is Jesus. And when you encounter Him and you actually give your life to Him, when you give your life to Him, you'll encounter Him. And that will change everything. That will change everything in your life. And that's the problem, I think, with a lot of people too, is that they don't want to change. Is because they're happy the way they are now. But, it's not always going to be that way. And I hope you know where you're walking, because if you don't and the lights go out, it's going to get pretty dark without your lamp. He says in the Bible, in Psalms, David writes, or maybe it's not David, but I want to say it is, just because of how much he appears in the Psalms. The Psalms say that the Word of God, this Bible here, is a light to my feet and a lamp to my path. And so when the lights go out, you don't know where to go, it's going to be pretty bad for you. Jesus also says directly from His mouth in Luke chapter 6, the very end of Luke chapter 6, He says, "Why do you call me Lord, Lord, and don't do what I say? I'll tell you what a man who hears my words and does not do them is like. He's like a man who built a house on the sand, and when the storm came, the ruin of that house was great. And that's basically what you're doing if you are just willy-nilly going along with whatever you're fixated on right now. When that leaves or something happens to it, you're going to be lost if you don't have something to guide you. And I don't want you to have to go through the same pain that I did, because I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. I mean, I almost died in there, man. I almost died. And it was all really mental, what I was going through. It was all mental. It wasn't illness or anything. It's just a circumstance that I was presented. I'll tell you the whole story when I figure it out. I want you to know that there's a way that you don't have to go through whatever bad stuff is coming from you alone. You are going to have to go through storms, because Jesus didn't say if the storm comes. He said when the storm comes. The ruin of that house was great. I want your house to stand, and I don't want you to have those problems that I had because I was seeking God instead of already having Him and talking to Him. You see what I mean? I had to build it from the ground up instead of already having my mansion that could withhold a storm. I'd have been a lot better off, and I would have moved a lot faster that way, and I wouldn't have wasted the time that I am now trying to get back up to where I already should have been. And so I'll basically go over chapter 24 with you, because that's where we are. Jesus has just lamented over Jerusalem after proclaiming woes to the scribes and Pharisees, 7 woes. And basically he ripped them a new one, and he told them, "Woe to you, you hypocrites! You clean the outside of the cup and the plate, but the inside are full of greed and self-indulgence." And he goes on and does this for about 6 paragraphs. Maybe 7, because he did it 7 times. That sounds more accurate. And then he laments over, it's what seems like Israel altogether. He says, "O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the city that kills prophets and stones those who are sent to it. How often would I have gathered your children together as a hen gathers her brood under her wings, but you were not willing. See, your house is left to you desolate. For I tell you, you will not see me again until you say, Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord." And that's where chapter 23 ends. He's just pronounced woes over the scribes and the Pharisees, and then he's lamented over Jerusalem, which he entered in maybe 2 chapters ago. Oh, yep, in chapter 21. That's when he came. And I know he goes to Bethany at some point before his destruction, which may be where he's headed now. It doesn't matter. I don't know geographically what is about to happen with Jesus in his journey. But I know that he's leaving the temple, and he's still in Jerusalem. And he says as he left the temple, he's going away when the disciples came to point to him at the buildings of the temple, but he answered them, "You see all these, do you not? Truly I say to you, there will not be left here one stone upon another that will not be thrown down." And I think this part's interesting because Jesus, it'd be easy for Jesus to make all of these prophecies about things that were happening years after he left. Like, for instance, Isaiah or Daniel or any of the other messianic prophecies. It'd be pretty easy for them to just say some stuff and wait for it to happen, because eventually it's going to happen. If it's not too far out of the woods, it's general, it's vague enough. You know, you want to say that about Jesus, but he's got us beat. I mean, he's telling them what's going to happen to them. He's going to tell them what's going to happen at the end of the age. He's healed blind people, sick people, lame people, lepers. He's resurrected somebody at this point, Lazarus, from the grave. He looked at a fig tree and withered it, just by speaking to it. He walks on water. He calms the storms by speaking to them. He multiplies bread and feeds 5,000 people with 5 loaves. He's got us beat from whatever, it's either him or it's not. He's either the Messiah or he's not. I mean, I'm putting all my eggs in Jesus' basket. That's where the faith comes in that they talk about. They're like, oh, you have to have faith. Well, that's what it is. I don't know that he is who he says he is, but I believe it. I believe it, and I'm going to actually take that to the next level, and I'm going to follow him and do exactly what he did for the rest of my life. And it just so happens that the one that you think I'm crazy for following actually advocates for serving others and putting others first and being more like God, who is rich in mercy and grace and who opposes the proud and exalts the humble. I mean, these are the things I'm talking about when I say, oh, I worship this, my God, Jesus Christ. I worship this man who walked with the rest of mankind as a God among men, glorified by his Father in heaven. Look, I'm just saying, I've never heard a better story, and I'm also saying that everything that he stood for is it. It's spot on, and it's the way. If you lived life that way, which is why they say Jesus is the way in John chapter 14, the way, the truth, and the life. If you want life, if you want the life, if you want the truth, if you want the way, you can find that in the character of Jesus. It's all there. It's him. He's the way to eternal life. He's the way to life in abundance. All of these things that I'm speaking about are scripturally, like I got them from Scripture. I am the door. I am the shepherd. I give you life in abundance. That's from John chapter 10. I am the way, the truth, and the life. That comes from John chapter 14. I'm telling you these in reference so that you just don't totally discredit me, but I'm telling you that everything I've told you in the last 30 seconds is straight from the Bible. And all that stuff about exalting, the humble being exalted and the prideful being humbled, that came from the Bible. All of it did. And I'm telling you that to help you understand what kind of stuff I'm talking about when I say I worship this guy. And I followed him. And I decided that I'm going to follow him. And I'm going to do exactly what he did. And he told me that if I seek his kingdom and above everything else, like I don't focus on anything except for his kingdom and what he wants, and treat people how he wants, and do the things that he wants in the ways that he wants them, because they're better that way. They work out better for other people that way, because that's what he cares about. And it also works out in turn for you, ironically, better that way. Then yeah, I'm going to do it. And I'm going to teach you about it. And that's kind of where, even aside from the miracles, people get bogged down about like, oh, do you really believe you're resurrected? Yeah, I do. But I also believe that he spent his whole life doing all of this stuff on top of the miracles, on top of the miracles. It's like, okay, well, that kind of seals the deal, because he didn't do anything for his own selfish gain. There's nothing, not even a sick person could pull this off for the 3 years that he was doing it. He was speaking in public. He had like 5 different discourses, major discourses recorded in the Gospel of Matthew, in public with the authorities and the people. And he wasn't asking for money, and he wasn't trying to overthrow the government, and he wasn't trying to do any of that. He just wanted to speak the words of God, our Creator, to us. And so there we round back to, he hasn't, he just told the future. He said Jesus' temple was going away when his disciples came to point it out to him, the temple buildings. He's saying, dude, do you not know? Truly I say to you, there will not be left one stone on top that will not be thrown down. And this is going to happen around 70 AD when the temple's destroyed. This is going to happen like 40 years from now when he's speaking. But nonetheless, in their lifetime, the people he was speaking to, they saw it. And he was just making a point because they're talking about how beautiful it is. And he's saying, dude, you're missing the forest for the trees. That temple right there, that's made of gold, and it's just the most beautiful thing ever, and you can't hardly get away from it, how beautiful it looks. He's saying that stuff's going to be gone on the ground in 40 years. So let's not worry about that. Let's not hype it up more than it really is. Let's not give it too much credit. And then he goes on to talk about the signs of the end of the age and the abomination of desolation that was spoken about in Daniel, the coming of the Son of Man, and the time and the date on which that hour is coming. And so basically I have some highlights from reading this, and I'll let you read the whole thing. It's Matthew chapter 24. The whole thing is about the coming ages. Then in chapter 25, we'll get into some parables. And then we'll get into the plot to kill Jesus, his death and resurrection. That's going to be the whole book of Matthew. But basically, if you were asking me, how to summarize this, I'd say, look, there's going to be some times that come in the future that are going to be called the end times. And they're going to be the end of the universe, the end of the earth, the end of all this place is going to be destroyed. And he's telling you that just so you know kind of how the story goes. Helpful. That's awesome. So we know we can just keep working until this day where everything's going to fall apart. Awesome. So basically what I got from this was not to believe anybody who comes in the name claiming to be the Messiah, who comes in the name of God claiming to be a Messiah. He says, for if anyone says to you, look, here's the Christ, or there he is, do not believe it. For false Christs and false prophets will arise and perform great signs and wonders, so as to lead astray, if possible, even the elect. See, I have told you beforehand, so if they say, look, he is in the wilderness, do not go out. If they say, look, he is in the inner rooms, do not believe it. For as lightning comes from the east and shines as far as the west, so will be the coming of man. Wherever the corpse is, there the vultures will gather. And so Jesus is basically saying, look, the only time you're going to see a Messiah is when he's coming in the clouds, baby, and it's game time. You won't miss it when he comes back. And so anybody who claims it is lying, because you will know when there's a man coming from the clouds. That's him. And it's going to be, who knows, scary. I don't know, but it's going to be pretty cool. Hopefully I don't have to see that, but if I do, I know I'm on the right side of it. Then he talks about the lesson of the fig tree. He says, from the fig tree learn its lesson. As soon as its branches become tender and puts out its leaves, you know that summer's near. So also all these things, you know that he is near at the very gates. Truly I say to you, this generation will not pass away until all these things take place. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away. And so I always thought that he was referencing always to the end of the entire earth, but a lot of this he's talking directly to the people in front of him, saying this is going to happen in your lifetime. And then, so that's what all that was before, except for when he talks about the coming of the Son of Man, obviously. And then the last part, he says, but concerning the day or the hour, no one knows, not even the angels, nor the Son, but only the Father. For as the days of Noah, so will be the coming of man. They were all unaware of the flood, but it came and swept them away. So will the coming of man be. And that's basically really what I want you to know, is that there's one Messiah. Don't be led astray by anybody who says anything differently. Don't do it. And if you listen to him, like I said, you don't want to be a total heretic or whatever, and you want to hear people out, so definitely listen to them. But I would take everything they say and drive it home with this book, referencing back and forth. Does it match up with what this book says? Because let me tell you, this is the closest thing to a story of your existence that I've ever read. You know, how you were made, what happened at the beginning of time. I mean, this is a book that's been recorded and added to by humans throughout human history to keep us up to date. And so, if it doesn't match up with this, well, I'm not buying it. And if you do find something that's true, I'll listen to you. I'll compare it to that. You're going to have a hard time beating Jesus and what he did. Okay, I'm just going to let you know right now, it's going to be pretty hard to beat some guy who resurrected from the dead and forgave me of all my sins so I can keep operating underneath him with no shame. I mean, it's pretty, in his name, it's a pretty good deal. It's going to be hard to beat that. It can be impossible, really, because it's the greatest deal on the planet. And the only reason people don't do it for themselves is because they think it's a bunch of freaky deaky religious crap, and they're missing it that way, which is sad. But I know how that you feel, because I felt the exact same way. Like I said, if you told me 3 years ago, however long it was, in 2020, that I would be doing this right now, I wouldn't believe you. I would actually probably call you some names that were not too PC politically correct. So, anyways, that's all I have. That was chapter 25 of Matthew. We'll talk about chapter 26 on the next video.